recognizing that they have a strong civic duty value in them, many of them. And many companies are recognizing, wow, what a rich resource for brain power and innovation in our company. So yeah, it is a way of, or bringing them back, they'll come back for short-term projects. As I said, I think it's Dell that's doing that. So yeah, there was another question over here.
Similar to like the Briggs-Myers testing and
Yeah,
stuff like that
Myers-Briggs.
for personality and so forth.
Yeah.
Is there testing and scoring that you inculcate into a business when you go in to help them with their diversity strategy, or is that kind of a sticky wick to bring these, you know, influences, I guess, or individual perspectives to the surface? Or is it just like this roundtable stuff that you kind of ballpark?
Sure. There is no generational psychometric assessment, but there certainly Myers-Briggs, strengths deployment inventory, I don't know if you're familiar with that. It looks at motivational values.
What was the name again?
It's called Strengths Deployment Inventory. Elias Porter is the psychologist who developed it. And that looks at motivational values and work styles. There's a work styles inventory. There's a thinking styles inventory. And certainly all of those are useful for what we're talking about really is building self-awareness and group awareness. I'm going to quickly run through what some of the different companies are doing to tap into innovation and then take a few more questions and then we'll wrap up, but I'll be around if people want to talk to me in between sessions. So we talked about cross-generational mentoring, and that is not just traditional mentoring, more senior person to a more junior person. That's also having a junior person mentor an older person, which is called reverse mentoring. Engage cross-generational task forces. So something that NASA did was say, okay, let's put together a cross-generational task force made up of the 4 generations and have them identify some business problems and come up with solutions. And they've had tremendous success with this. But you could also make this generational specific. So another thing that they've done is said, let's put up task forces of Gen Yers, Gen Xers, 4th generation baby boomers, and have them identify business issues and come up with solutions. And again, tremendous success with this, and people have really loved being involved with it because they feel included in the company. They feel like they're contributing something to the company. So what they found is that they're willing to do a lot of work even outside of work hours because they're so highly motivated at helping drive business success. So that's something that's worked for a lot of companies. Reward and recognition. So when you get this slide deck, look at some of those different values and structure your reward and recognition system based on different values. Sometimes it's not just promotion or bonus. It's extra time off. It's flexible schedules so that people can be, if someone's raising a young kid, it's flexible schedules so that they can have the ability to be with their kids when they need to. So there's all kinds of different ways that companies are structuring their rewards and recognition systems, and I'm happy to talk with you more about that as well. Make social media part of your everyday world, especially as you get more and more Gen Yers coming in. And this is not just Facebook, but how many of you have an intranet in your company? Great, okay. How many of you use things like Yammer, Chatter? Fabulous, great. And are you having success with it?
A lot of success.
A lot of success, yeah. Great way to stay in touch, to keep everyone involved in terms of what's happening in the company so that people feel included and engaged. A lot of companies are allowing people to have their own wiki pages, Facebook-like pages. So Accenture is using this a lot with tremendous success. Open up the office to encourage discussion. I was just recently doing some work at Media Arts Lab, which is Apple's advertising agency. And you go into their company, they have no structure in terms of desks. Everybody's walking around with their iPads. They're all mobile. And the office instead just has couches and hammocks and sofas. And there are workspaces that people can go and plug into and work. But no one has a designated desk. And I said, doesn't that drive people crazy? And they said, no, people love it. There's a big outdoor, this is down in Los Angeles, so there's a big outdoor space where people can work, and they just come and go. But what that does is encourage that discussion and open that up. Toss routine meetings. And by that, I mean whatever you can do. Have meetings off-site, have meetings at Starbucks, have meetings standing up. 75% of American employees say that they attend far too many meetings that are unproductive and boring, where they end up doing other things in the meetings. So you know what? Just toss that. Do 10-minute stand-up meetings. Have brain dump meetings that it's just about idea generation. You're going to evaluate them in the next 10-minute stand-up meeting. But first, we're just going to identify some ideas and get people talking about ideas. Make sure that everyone has a voice. Sometimes with the older generation and also the younger generation, they feel intimidated to speak out. So make sure, create a way for everyone to have a voice, which leads me to my next point. Practice psychological safety. Now, by that I mean that it's okay to speak out and it's okay to be wrong. And just because you're talking to the CEO doesn't mean you can't say, you know what, sir, I disagree with you. A study that was done, for example, with nurses. There was a nurse in a hospital in New York who looked at a patient's chart and went, hang on a minute, that medication, that dose is way too high for this patient. She thought about calling the doctor, but because the doctor was so disparaging towards her and her skills, she was intimidated and afraid to call the doctor, so she didn't, and the patient died. And that's not having psychological safety at work. So if you are the CEO, CFO of your company, create a way for people to say, I disagree with what you're doing, which is a point up here in a moment in terms of have CEO roundtables once a month with people from different generations in your company. Get their ideas and listen to them. You don't have to act on them, but listen to them. Consider variations on a matrix organization. So what a lot of companies are doing is creating that sense of, this is something else that Dell is doing. Here are the projects. We list them on the intranet. And rather than staying in your role and reporting to the same person for 6 years, you can move through the organization depending on the project. And your manager cannot block you. So if there's a project that comes up that we're looking for a web developer for this project and you want to apply for that, apply for it. So they're making their organizations project-based rather than team-based. Allow implementation of resource groups. So by that I mean it's okay to allow a women's group to form, to